The Cat Who Went to Budapest. You remember, don't you, children, the batty English lady who used to live in Moscow? She had a weakness for ginger cats, but they all proved faithless and ran away. It wasn't until she got Jack that she learnt the beauty of black cats. Yes, it was Black Jack who turned out to be the constant one. Jack was a stay-at-home kind of cat. Evidently, he had done all his travelling in a past life. He used to sit on the Turkish carpet, showing off his long paws, and look at the globe on top of the TV set. And that was quite enough travelling for him, thank you very much. Jack and the English lady lived happily together in a flat near Vedincha. Jack didn't mind too much when she brought a bald guy into their lives. The bald guy brought red roses for the lady, and soon a wedding was on the cards. The bald guy looked after Jack when the English lady went home to England. Family life was peaceful and uneventful for quite a while. The batty lady had strange ideas, but mostly she was only mildly mad. Sometimes, though, she could be frankly bonkers. One day she got it into her head that they were all going to go and live in Australia. Australia was very attractive, hot and sunny, with kangaroos and wine, surfing and swimming pools. True, it would be a long flight for Jack in a clipper cage on Qantas, and he would have to go into quarantine. But think of the new lifestyle he would have. Clipper cage? Qantas? Quarantine? Yeah, right, thought Jack. Dream on. I'm going nowhere. So the batty lady went for a holiday in Australia on her own, and the bald guy looked after Jack while she was away. She sent photos of the red-hot desert in Oz, while they looked out of the window at the snow in Moscow. After a couple of months, the batty lady came home. The bald guy greeted her with red tulips, and Jack was in a purring mood. The three of them settled back into their lives in Moscow. Jack was happy. As I say, he was not much of a cat for travelling. Sometimes the batty lady talked about Australia. "Don't you want to go and live in Oz, Jack?" she asked. "Think about the new lifestyle you could have." Clipper cage? Qantas? Quarantine? Yeah, right, thought Jack. Dream on. I'm going nowhere. But the batty lady had been bitten by the bug for Australia. In fact, in Moscow, she was working for an Australian newspaper called The Daily Trumpet. From time to time, she had to go to Oz to see her boss. The lady went to Australia when the first snow appeared in Moscow, because, as you know, when it's cold in the northern hemisphere, it's boiling hot in Oz. She came back just as soon as the weather in Moscow was starting to warm up. For when it cools down in Oz, the lilac is coming out in Mother Russia. And always, while she was away, the bald guy looked after Jack. Of course, when she was in the red-hot Australian desert, the English lady missed Jack very much. She looked up at the stars and remembered her Mr. Panther, with his coat so black as the midnight sky. And so they lived for several years, the globe-trotting lady and the travel-averse cat, not forgetting the bald guy who was always there to look after Jack when she was away. Life might have gone on like this had the Ministry of Warm Welcomes in Moscow not decided that the lady was a bit too batty, a bit too English for their liking. Then the whole family had to pack up and leave Mother Russia. The plan was that they would all move to Australia. But first, Jack had to go into quarantine in Europe. He had to go and see a vet in Budapest. He was not going to like that. The bald guy and the lady went to the Aeroflot office and booked a flight to Budapest. They got a ticket for Jack as well. He got a place on a special flight, one with no dogs on board. With heavy hearts, the family left Moscow. The batty lady and the bald guy put Jack in a bag and carried him to the airport. With one yellow eye, Jack peeped through the netting of the bag. They stroked him in the carrier, trying to comfort him as they all sat at the departure gate, waiting for the flight. The batty lady knew Jack hated travelling. She was afraid he was going to howl the whole way to Budapest. But on the flight, he was as good as gold. The kind Aeroflot stewardess let them take Jack out of the bag. For 2 hours, he sat quietly on the bald guy's knee, looking out of the plane window. He didn't even meow. It turned out Jack could be a flying feline after all. When they arrived in Budapest, they went to an Airbnb. Straight away they fed Jack and gave him a drink of water, and soon he was feeling at home. He stretched out on the zebra carpet and showed off his long paws. "Now, no more travelling," he said. "That's enough for me." After the weekend, the bald guy had to go back to work in Moscow. The lady was going to Australia to see if her boss would give her a job there. In Budapest, Jack went to stay with a vet called Dr. Bella. Jack was not very happy about that, but what could they do? If the lady was successful and got a job in Australia, then the bald guy would join her, and Jack would have to go in a clipper cage for a long flight on Qantas, a very long flight indeed. Clipper cage? Qantas? Quarantine? I don't think so, Jack said to himself. And then a very strange thing happened. The lady's boss in Australia said she was more used to him working in Europe, so he sent her back to Budapest. Jack got his way. The lady came back, and he did not have to travel ever again. Jack was a Russian cat. He'd been born in a shoe factory, and he lived most of his life in a flat near Vedinha. Now he was old, he would sit under a peach tree. He would enjoy his retirement in sunny Budapest. Actually, Jack was rather thin when the lady picked him up from the vet. Apparently he'd missed her a lot while she was away. But he soon started tucking into his dinners again when he was back, living with his batty English owner in a new flat down by the River Danube. That just left the bald guy, still at his job in Moscow. Their lives were like a Rubik cube, with all the coloured squares mixed up. Jack was with the lady in Budapest now, but the guy and the lady were separated. They kept in touch by video. Their only hope that Christmas was that they each had an amaryllis bulb. Jack and the English lady in Budapest were waiting for the bald guy to arrive from Moscow. They were expecting him to come in the spring. The amaryllis would bloom red, and it would be a feast day. The three of them would be together again. The bald guy, the batty lady, and her beloved black cat, Jack.